Hi guys, welcome to class. This is our uh, attendance question for today. Asks you to tell me which character from the story you think is the most courageous. Obviously, this is a question that's open to interpretation, so it's not like there's a right or wrong answer with it. Answer to the best of your ability with what you think. So tell me, of the stories that we read, and we've read 5 different stories. "'Twas a Dark and Dreary Night," "A Kind of Murder," "The Most Important Day," "Rikki Tikki Tavi," and "The Friend Inside." Of those stories, which character demonstrates the most courage in your opinion, and how do you know that? So put that in the chat. So some people have given me a character name here, so now tell me why. Why is that character the most courageous? There you go. See some good responses here. It's a good point, Emily. Very good. So again, this is our attendance question for today. Make sure you answer this. Answer this question. Again, there's no right or wrong answer here. It's opinion. It's your opinion. But I just need you to back your opinion up with some proof. So it may take you a little bit longer to respond to the question, but make sure that you do respond. Whoever iPhone is, would you mind changing your name to your name so I know who you are? Please. Okay, thanks. Okay, should see a couple more responses to this question. Again, this is the attendance question. Please make sure you answer the question today. We are going to be doing a lot of participation today. It is part of your participation grade to answer the questions that I asked today. A lot of review for the quest we have coming up. So just as a heads up, get your typing fingers right. There's going to be a lot of talking today. Oh, someone just said they don't have fingers. That is quite sad. I'm sorry you do not have any fingers. Yeah, Emily, you're right. There is, our first couple stories were not really super great examples of this character trait. They were like anti-examples. Okay, so great. So a lot of people pointed out Rikki Tikki Tavi as being someone who is courageous, most courageous, because he risked his life to save this family. You know, fought 3 deadly snakes and came out on the other side alive. Someone else pointed out that Helen, because she couldn't see or hear anything, and yet she overcame uncertainty, broadened her opportunities in her life. And I think later on in her personal life, she really does demonstrate a great deal of courage. Darcy's wife, because unlike Rikki Tikki, who knew he had a chance at winning, Darcy's wife knows that if the snake gets her, like, she's gone. Like, there's no, she would really die. Couple other, some person brought up Hugh just in the moment when he actually does stand up for Mr. Watson. So not in the rest of the story, but in that moment, he does demonstrate a great deal of courage. Good. Good. Someone also brought up Jim, which is great. Okay, excellent. Let's move on. I'll pray and then talk through a couple of announcements. Let's pray. Dear God, thank you for today. Thank you for these examples of courage that we can study and go over. Give these students understanding as we try to solidify a more complex skill today, that they would be able to get this and be able to do it again tomorrow. In your name, amen. Okay, tomorrow we are taking a quest, the test over the literature unit. So tomorrow's class period is an optional session. So basically for the first 15 minutes of class, I'll be available to answer any questions. The quest itself will be open all day from 8 a.m. all the way to 11:59 p.m. So you have all day to take it. There will be a time limit, but it is open book. The open book, open notes. However, a lot of the questions are application questions, where I'm going to be giving you an example of one of those literary devices, and you have to tell me what that example is, or what point of view this story is, or something like that. And those aren't really Googleable because I came up with the examples. Next, just make sure that, so if you have questions at the beginning of class tomorrow, I will be here in this class session to answer questions, and then of course you have the rest of the class period to take it. There will most likely be between 30 and 40 questions. I say most likely because I haven't completely edited it yet, so I don't know exactly how many there'll be. If there's 30 to 40 questions, you'll have about 40 to 50 minutes to actually take the quest. You don't have to be on the Zoom meeting to take the quest. You can just take it at any point in time during the day from 8 a.m. to midnight is when the quest is open. Okay, in addition, there is a study guide that you can find in the week 4 folder that lists all the stories we read, all the literary devices you need to know, and our theme, courage. So for the stories, you just need to know things like who the characters of the story are and stories are, and what basically happens in those stories. And for the literary devices, you need to be able to identify examples of them. Okay. Today in class, we're going to talk a little bit about courage that we found in the story, kind of come with our final example here, which, by the way, what are the two parts of a theme? Anyone remember what the two parts of a theme are? There's a universal two parts of a theme are the universal value and the author's opinion. A theme is what the author's trying to teach us, but the two parts of a theme are the universal value and the author's opinion. That's going to be important for you. Okay, homework, practice list 2B to 100% by 9:15. When we do take our vocab quiz, the quiz that we take will cover both list 2A and list 2B, so just be prepared for that. We'll take that quiz at the end of next week. In addition, study for the quest. There's a study guide posted again, but the quest is tomorrow. So those are the only two pieces of homework. Did anyone do the giraffe homework? Wow, disappointed in all of you. No one wrote a giraffe in the Serengeti? My flight got canceled. Is it because of COVID? Wow. Did it in your dreams? Okay. Do you have proof? The giraffe died? Oh my goodness. Okay. Wow. That's so sad. Okay. My flight crashed. Terrifying. Okay. All right. Let's talk through some of the stories. So the stories we read each show us a slightly different aspect of courage that I'd like to talk through with you right now. This will be important for the quiz tomorrow. It'll also be important just to your understanding of the definition of courage here. So 'Twas a Dark and Dreary Night, we learned that courage is not just as simple as doing something that you're afraid of. Because our main character, Patrick, stayed out in the dark But he only did it because he was more afraid of something else, which is more cowardly than it is courageous. So we learn in that story why you are courageous is important. We learned in the story the most important day with Anne Sullivan not giving up on her teacher or on her student, Helen. And with Helen, not giving up there, that part of courage is persistence, to do something new and different and something that's difficult, trying something that's difficult. In A Kind of Murder, we learned that it takes courage to stand up for what you believe in against your friend, when all of your friends are saying that you're being goody two shoes or calling you names for it. It takes a lot of courage for that. So we learned that in A Kind of Murder, we learned that courage is standing up for something you believe in. We learned from The Friend Inside and Rikki Tikki Tavi that sometimes courage means risking your actual life or doing what you know to be right in The Friend Inside. And Rikki Tikki Tavi risking being self-sacrificial for someone else. So that brings us to this definition of courage here, okay? Courage is the determination to do right in the face of danger, difficulty, or fear, regardless of personal interest. So it doesn't matter what you want. It doesn't matter what your, how afraid you are. It doesn't matter how you feel, but you know something is right, and so you're going to do it. You're going to stick with your conscience, even if it's difficult, even if it's dangerous, even if you're afraid. Or it can mean undertaking something difficult, even if you're afraid, even if you're nervous, even if you have anxiety about it, because there's a greater cause. So courage is really tied to this idea of there being a greater cause in a situation. So whenever we think about something being courageous, we also have to think through what's the greater cause here. So like, for example, the picture here that you see on the screen done by John Howe, for like a game, I think. This is Beowulf fighting a dragon, because in his community, even though he's old, in his community, he is the only one who's willing to go fight this dragon that's been burning down the whole country. So, pretty great there. All right, let's do a little more practice with we're heading into review now. So we're gonna do some practice with our point of views. What I want you to do right now is write in the chat, give me the 5 different points of view. Do it all in one message. What are the 5 different points of view? Put them in the chat. What are the 5 different points of view? Again, today's a lot of participation. So all 19 of you need to put an answer down. These are all, even if you're taking a guess at things, put them all down. If you wouldn't mind putting your answer to this one in one response, that way I'll be able to see all of your answers. Angelica, perfect, good. Good job, Emily. Nice job, Hani. Good job, Brielle. Sienna, Maddie, good. Yeah, nice job, Don. Excellent. Yeah, you're right. You're right about the definition there, Xander, of that last one. You do have them all. It's nice, Alex. Oh, so close, Nisha. So close. Nisha, can you give me the definition of the last one, maybe? Do you remember anything about it? Excellent. Okay, 10 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. Nice, Kai. 5, 4. Good job, Sam. 3, 2, 1. Yes, we have first person, second person, third person omniscient, third person limited, and third person objective. Excellent. So we're going to look at some examples. So here's what is on this page is some stories that I wrote last night. Here's some stories that I wrote last night to give us some more practice on these. So I'm going to go through the story, and then at the end, we'll know what point of view it is. So here we go. Here's the first story. I can't believe he would say that to you, Shauna exclaimed. I know, I was shocked, Tara responded as she nonchalantly stole another fry from Shauna's tray. He really told you that your painting sucked and that you don't have any talent at all? Yep. What did you say? Nothing. I just dumped his precious article in the trash where it belongs and left. No way, you didn't. Yep. Shauna leaned back on her bench and laughed. Okay, so in here, my first step is to see, let's look for first person. So is this story a story that the narrator is telling about themselves? Is the narrator telling us a story about themselves? Is the narrator telling us a story about themselves? This is where you need to respond to the chat. Is the narrator telling us a story about themselves? Okay, so what characters do we have in here? We have Shauna and we have Tara. Are there any other characters in there? No. So we don't really have any other characters. We have two characters, and neither one, Shauna and Tara, aren't the narrator. So therefore, this is not first person or second person. It's not either of those. So I know my story, my narrator is telling me a story about two other people, Shauna and Tara. So that makes this a third person story. So now I'm checking if it's omniscient, limited, or objective. And again, all I'm looking for is how many minds can we read? If we can read more than one, it's omniscient. If we can only read one, it's limited. I like to remember the limited one because a lowercase l looks a lot like a 1. So I can only read one person's mind. Objective, I can't read anybody's mind. I like to remember that with the O there, it kind of looks like a 0. And omniscient reminds me of God who can read everybody's mind. So objective, you can't read anyone's mind. Limited, only one. Omniscient, you're like God, you can read everyone's mind. So in this story, let's look here. Can I read Shauna's mind? Do I know what she's thinking? I have two things, other than what she says, I have two things that I know about her. Shauna exclaimed, I know how she's saying something. And I know that Shauna leaned back on her bench and laughed. Neither one of those tell me what Shauna is actually thinking. So I don't know what Shauna is thinking. Let's look at Tara. Do I know what Tara is thinking? So I know that Tara steals a fry from her friend's tray nonchalantly. And I know what Tara says. Other than that, I don't know anything else about what she's thinking. So if I can't read anybody's mind, what point of view is this story told in? What point of view is the story told in? Put your answer down on the board. I need everyone's answer in the chat. What point of view is this story? Again, I can't read anyone's mind here. So if I can't read anyone's mind, this is objective. Third person objective there. Great. For those of you who said limited, remember limited is I can read one person's mind, and I can't read Tara's mind and I can't read Shauna's mind. So I can't read either person's mind here. It has to be objective. Objective is I can read 0 people's minds. Okay, let's look at our next story here. Miguel groaned as his alarm went off for the 3rd time this morning. If he hit snooze one more time, he knew he'd be late. Does it really matter? He thought. Coach can't make 4 a.m. practices any worse, can he? But Miguel knew from experience that Coach Santos definitely could. So he turned off his alarm and peeled his stiff body off his bed. Ouch. If he was already feeling this bad, this practice was going to hurt so much worse today than it had yesterday. 15 minutes later, as Miguel was wolfing down some breakfast, his phone rang. Hey, Hector. One last-minute wake-up call as requested. Thanks, man. You're a lifesaver. No problem. Wait, were you already up? You sound so much more alert than normal. Yeah, I'm eating breakfast now. I'll be there to pick you up in 10 minutes. Great. Hey, did you get number 4 of the calc homework? Miguel groaned. The math homework? How had he forgotten the math homework? Okay, so if I look at this one, first thing I'm checking for is this written in first person? So is my narrator telling a story about themselves? Is the narrator telling us a story about something that went on in their life? Is my narrator So I look at my characters in the story here to try to tell, and I have Miguel and I have Hector, and my narrator isn't either of those two characters. So my narrator is not telling a story about themselves, therefore it's not first person or second person narration. So I know it's third person because my narrator is telling a story about someone else. So now I need to look at how many minds can I read? All minds, one mind, or no minds. So I look here and I see, do I know what Miguel is thinking? Well, I see that he knows he'd be late. I see that he's questioning if it really matters. I see that he's concerned that he forgot his math homework. So I can see what Miguel is thinking. Okay, let's look at Hector. Do I know what Hector is thinking? No, all I know is that Hector has made a phone call. And I know what Hector is saying, but I don't know what Hector is thinking. So what point of view is this story? If I can read one person's mind, what is the point of view of this story? Put your answer in the chat. What is the point of view of the story if I can only read one person's mind? Okay, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, this story is limited because I can only read one person's mind. So it's a limited point of view story. Okay, let's look at this next story. A large ball of flames launched through the night sky and over the city walls, plowing into a building not 10 feet away from Fletcher. The thatched roof burst into flames. Fletcher jumped into action, hurling his bucket of spell-cast water towards the building. The water hung in the air for a moment as it expanded to match the size of the flames. Then in a moment, it fell, squelching the fire before it had a chance to spread to a neighboring building. Fletcher wiped the sweat from his brow and stooped to refill his bucket from the fountain. Then he set the bucket on the stone street and reached for the magic to reset the spell. He wasn't as fast as he'd been earlier tonight, but casting the same spell 100 times would make anyone tired. Okay, so if this one is my narrator telling the story about themselves. Is the narrator telling the story about themselves? Right, narrator's telling the story about someone else. That someone else is named Fletcher. So we know it's third person because the narrator is telling the story about this other dude named Fletcher. Okay, now let's look. Do we know what Fletcher is thinking? Do we know what Fletcher is thinking? So we see what Fletcher is doing. He jumps into action, he hurls his bucket, he stoops to refill his bucket, sets the bucket down, resets the spell, but a little more slowly than last night. So do I know what Fletcher is actually thinking? Five, four, three, two, one. Exactly. I don't know what he's thinking. I only know what he's doing. So there's one character. I can't read his mind. What point of view is this story told in? What is the point of view of the story? Is it omniscient, limited, or objective? Okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Most people are right. Here's third person objective. Third person objective because I don't know what anyone is thinking. Great. Great job. Okay, just a reminder to people, you do need to respond to these. It is part of the participation grade for today. Okay, let's look at the next question, or the next one. There's, I think, 3 more after this one. Okay, I stared down at the bland-looking food on my tray and sighed. How had it come to this? When I was a kid, my family had had all the latest tech, the best cars, and the most delicious gourmet food. Now, though, all I got was one lousy free school cafeteria meal a day, a free bus ride to my family's stately hovel, and no phone, no laptop, not even a pair of cheap headphones. I picked up the cheap plastic fork and half-heartedly dug in. After all, this would be my only meal today. So this one, is the narrator telling us a story about themselves? Is the narrator telling us a story about themselves? Yes, right. So we know we're looking at either first person or second person here because my narrator is a character in the story. So the next thing is the narrator talking to the reader or just reflecting on their own life? My narrator doesn't seem to be actually talking to the reader. They seem to be more reflecting. So what point of view is this story? What is the point of view of this story right here? Five, four, three, two, one. Right, you're looking at it being a first person story. Excellent. Let's look at the next one. The little pig slammed the door and pulled the bolt shut, panting hard. He made it inside just in time. He slumped against the door, listening for what he knew was inevitable. Brother said this would happen, but did you listen? No, you had to insist that wood was a cheaper, more efficient building material. Just then he heard it, a heavy sniffing noise from outside. I know you're in there, the wolf growled. His mouth salivated for just a taste of the little pig inside. He hadn't eaten in days. The pig from yesterday definitely didn't count as a meal. Okay, so in this one, is the narrator telling us a story about themselves? Is the narrator telling us a story about themselves? Okay, if not, do we know what the characters are thinking? So we know it's third person. Do we know what the characters are thinking? So we know that the little pig thinks this. He's concerned, he's beating himself up about, you made a big mistake. And we know, but do we know what the wolf is thinking? Well, we know he's thinking this. We do know what the wolf is thinking. A little bit there. So if we know what both characters are thinking, what is the point of view of this story? If we know what both characters are thinking, what is the point of view of this story? Yes, we're getting so good at this, guys. Let's go. What is the point of view of the story? No, you have to be a little more specific. Which kind of third person? Okay, 5, 4, 3. There you go, Noah. 2, 1. Yeah, we're looking at third person omniscient. Third person omniscient. Okay, let's look at the next one. This is my diary. If you are reading it, that means I finally got famous, but died tragically trying to save a bunch of people or something. Or you're my Snoopy sister, in which case, get away from my step, Sophie, or I will destroy everything you love. Okay, so in this one, what is the point of view? Is my narrator a character in the story? The narrator telling us a story about themselves? Kind of, right? And then, but is my narrator talking to the reader? Is my narrator talking to the reader? Okay, so what point of view is this story told in? What point of view is this story told in? Yes. Yes. Let's go. And I know that's a typo, but that is hilarious. That is so funny. Okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. That's time. This is second person. Second person because my narrator is talking directly to the reader. You are reading this, talking to the reader. You are my Snoopy sister. You need to get away from my stuff. They're talking directly to the reader. Okay? Last one here. Last one. I'm going to read it, and then I'm going to let you figure it out yourself. Here we go. Maribel took a deep breath and plastered a smile on her face before she stepped into the hospital room. Luke always hated pity and tears, and she wasn't going to cause him any more pain. However, as she got her first look at him, she barely kept herself from gasping in horror. She knew that it had been worse this time, but he looked truly awful. His skin was a pale shade that would have looked more natural on a corpse. The dark shadows in his cheeks and under his eyes were the only noticeable color in his normally ruddy face. He looked so fragile. Was this the same person who had been scaling mountains with her not 6 months ago? Luke opened his eyes at the sound of the door closing and looked at her, his face lighting up. "Hey there, beautiful," he croaked. "Back at you, hot stuff," Maribel managed, a slight quaver in her voice. "No, you have to hold yourself together better than this." What point of view is that story told in? Go through all the steps. Spot on, Angelica. Sienna. Jihu, try again. Anna, try again. Nice, Hani. Good job, Brielle. Nisha, Maddie. Emily, good. Noah, good. Jihu, good. Xander, good. Alex, good. Helen, try again. Aiden, good. Don, try again. Sam, try again. Good job, Helen. There you go. You got it. Anna, try again. Try again, Don. There you go, Sam. Right on. There you go, Don. There you go, Anna. Good. Okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Third person limited here because my narrator is telling a story about other people, Luke and Maribel, and we can only read Maribel's mind. We don't know what Luke is actually thinking. We know what Luke is doing. He opens his eyes, looks at her, his face lights up, he speaks, but we don't know what he thinks. We do know what Maribel thinks. Oh, I'm glad you think it sounds like a fun story, someone said. This is my, writing random pieces of stories last night for practice. Okay. Great, let's go back to our other review here. So for the purposes of this review, I'm going to put a couple of questions on the board and you guys answer them in the chat. Again, lots of participation today, so make sure you answer these questions. Even if you don't know, take a guess. Okay, we've talked about several different literary devices. We've talked about theme, tone, symbol, understatement, overstatement. We've talked about the point of views, protagonist and antagonist. Okay, so we need to be able to identify examples of these stories and be able to, or examples of these literary devices for what they are and define them. So here we go. Let's look at one. Oh, they're not going to be in order at all on this thing. So in the movie Beauty and the Beast, what kind of character is Belle? In the movie Beauty and the Beast, what kind of character is Belle? Yes. Excellent. Yeah, so yeah, Belle is the protagonist. That's great. She's a protagonist of the story. The Beast opposes her for part of the story, and for the other part of the story, Gaston is the big opposition. And Gaston, as the opposition, would be the antagonist. Yeah, but Belle is the protagonist. Great. Let's look at another one. What type of literary device is this statement? It's a slow airport. I spent a couple of weeks there one day. Can you really spend a couple of weeks somewhere in one day? There we go. I'm seeing it nice, Angelica. Sienna? Noah, good. Okay, good to know, Aiden. Yeah, we're looking at overstatement here. Overstatement is our literary device. Okay, let's look at the next one. There's some water in the Pacific Ocean. There's a little bit of water in the ocean. Just a smidge. What is that one? Yes. Yes. Just a smidge, just a little bit. Tiny little piece of it. Maybe a couple drops. Yeah, that is indeed understatement. Next one, light in the most important day stands for knowledge. What literary term describes this relationship? If light stands for knowledge, what's the literary term that describes that relationship? Something that stands for something else is, yes. Yeah, lots of us are getting it here. Yeah. Yeah, it is indeed a symbol. A symbol. A symbol. Okay, and next one. It was so cold I saw polar bears wearing jackets. What literary term, what literary device do we see here? Yeah, okay, so I'm seeing overstatement. That's awesome. Yes, overstatement. Good. Yeah, you could also point out first person. It's the same for the first one there. Very good. Awesome. Okay. That is all of our review for today. So remember, tomorrow's class period is an optional class period. So if you want to just take the quest during the class period, go ahead and do that. You don't have to log into class. But if you have any questions that you'd like to get answered before you take the quest, show up to the first 15 minutes of class and I'll be answering questions at that time. Otherwise, if anyone has any questions right now, feel free to stick around. Otherwise, you guys can be dismissed.